We seek refuge in God from the ousted Satan. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Peace and salutation upon Prophet Muhammad and his progeny. Once again, welcome you to our program, which is called Quran and Today's Life. So far, you were watching us and you chased this program. You know, we have discussed about the different types of jihad. And we understood jihad, it doesn't mean to assassinate and kill people. Do not homicide. Jihad, it means to strive against oneself, selfishness, or bad characters. So today we have a special guest, as you know him from the previous session, Mr. Huzur Bakhsh, Hujjatul Islam al-Muslimin Huzur Bakhsh, one of the teachers from Islamic Seminary Reform. So it's better to go to him and know the rest of the story. Assalamu alaikum. Once again, welcome you to our show. Thanks for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you because of this opportunity that you give to me again, to be at your service, inshallah, to have our discussion as a continuation of our previous session. Inshallah, I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help us to share the idea of Islam, inshallah, with our audience.
Thanks for your time again. So far, you know, we have talked about jihad and different types of jihad, and you have elaborated about them all. So, you know, we have left something from the previous session, if you remember. Yeah. So we would like to talk about those and elaborate it. The second type of jihad, so you were elaborating, but because of the shortage of the time, we had to postpone it to this session of this program.
Yes, to give you the summary of what we have been discussing so far. I told you about 4 terms that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used in the Holy Quran as a translation, the exact translation of the war. And I told you that jihad has got its specific feature which conveys a positive meaning. And later on we went to the different types of jihad, and that there were 3 types of jihad. The first was the financial jihad, as a kind of giving charity to other people. And the second type was the major jihad, which was the jihad with a human, he himself, desires, vices, and different things. And the third jihad, which inshallah we want to go deeply to that and discuss with one another, was jihad as a word used for the war, which is a kind of challenging point that we want to discuss nowadays.
So you mean we have a word for jihad as a war to, what do you call it, to have a battle against somebody?
Yes, of course. This word also is being used as a kind of war against other, but not that war. Of course, it conveys a positive meaning. It means for the sake of Allah and in the true way of it, with the true conditions of it. So, inshallah, we will go deeply to that, inshallah, and tell you the more meaning and more conditions that Islam shows and claims for jihad.
A question just here comes to my mind. Are we allowed, you know, to start and initiate a war against anyone? Or what we have to, you know, for example, I as a Muslim, I want to start a war against somebody, non-Muslim, non-believers or something like that. Am I allowed to do that or not?
Yes. You know, this is, of course, a very basic question, alhamdulillah, and we have to discuss, and it needs, of course, hours of discussion, but it is important to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that the humankind's life is really important. So with, you know, different faith, for example, a person has got his own or her own idea or belief or faith. So it's not that much important, of course. The person, he himself, his life is so important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He says in Quran that if you just kill a person, it seems that you kill all nations, all human beings, all mankind. So we will see that when the value of a person, a humankind, a person, is so much so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that if you disrespect this, right for a person to live, it's like that you disrespect this right for all humankind and all nations. So when this is a basic rule, and we will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Holy Quran saying such an important rule, so we will see that there is no any right to start a battle, to strike over others, and to even just leading to a degree that killing a person. So there is no any right for another person to kill another person.
So excuse me, sir, sorry to interrupt you again.
Please.
But now I'm very confused why we see in Syria right now, people that came, some people in the name of Islam, or they have just the name, for example, shows that they're Muslim, and they are, killing people. They have started the war. That's obvious, No one else, they have, they are both Muslim.
Yes.
So they have started, and they're killing people, children, we can say women, old people. So in Islamic terminology or Islamic idea, do we have a right to kill people, more especially children, women, old people, even non-Muslims, non-believers? Are we allowed to do that or not?
Yes. As I told you, so this is a basic discipline that Allah, and rule, of course, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that we have to respect even a person. This person has got his own right to live, and there is no any right for others to get this right from the others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also saying that in other verses that it doesn't make any difference that whether this person is from, for example, being a Muslim or Christian or Jewish or other school of thoughts or other denominations and faith. So it doesn't make any difference. So from every school of thought that you are, it's not important. You have this right to continue your life and to maintain, to be alive with others. So there is no any right, for the others to limit this right, to get your life, to kill other people, saying that, for example, this person is a kind of, infidel person, he doesn't believe in God, so I come to this conclusion that there is no any right for him to live. So this is not our, position to judge whether this person has got this right to live or not. So when we refer to Quran, we will see that people from different nations, whether they are black, white, colors. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sabghat Allah. So the color of God is important. So the color is not important. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran is clearly He is against racism and these things that we will see in the world. And of course, let alone killing. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the value of the life is that much important that even you cannot disrespect a person, so let alone killing. So you don't have this right to kill other people.
Even he's a kafir or a non-believer.
Yes. So there is no any right for that person. But a question again coming to our mind. Let me raise this. I myself raised this question.
That's great.
Yeah. That. So when we see, as I told you previous session, for the opening discussion, I told you that in the history we cannot find a period of time, a moment that there was not any fight, that there was not any war. When we go throughout the history, we will see that, there are many wars. So this question comes to our mind that, so this creature that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, so proud of him, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates human being, He is so proud that He said, فَتَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ أَحْسَنُ الْخَالِقِينَ, of course. So this creature, which is always in war and fighting with one another, what is a specific characteristic of this person that make him unique from the others? When we will see that this is the situation, this is the war, this is the fighting, this is always thinking about himself, selfishness and different vices that we will see.
Excuse me, and I heard, angels, they've told God, why you're going to create this kind of creature that he is going to kill and have a bloodshed. So,
exactly.
Is it true?
Exactly,
Is
this
it
is the
correct?
question, yes. That in the same verse that you said, they say that the angels told Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم وإذ قال ربك للملائكة إني جاعل في الأرض خليفة قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will put a person as a successor of yourself in the earth that he will shed the blood of the people and fighting with one another always. So this question is really a basic question for us. This is also in the other side a theological and philosophical question that nowadays the philosophers throughout the world they are discussing about. So this is very important. The question is like this: so whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before creation, he was aware of this characteristic of human being, that fighting is a kind of essential feature of such a creature, or no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not aware of it. It just happens to be so, for example. As the second idea that I told you, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before creation of this creature, humankind, he just created that creature, but later on he understood that this creature, this is the way that this, for example, human being behaves. Also in some books, we will see that there are some hints of it. But the idea of Islam is completely different.
Okay, sir. Would you please hold this idea? We will go for a short break, and after that, later on, we'll talk about this. Okay, the audience, we'll go for a short break. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Okay, now we are back. Welcome back again. We are going to talk about jihad. And so far, we were discussing why God Almighty has created human, as he knew that this person or this kind of creature is going to have bloodshed. So what is the reason? The expert is going to tell us more. Okay, sir, thank you for your elaboration, and I will be more happy to tell us what was the reason you were saying about why Almighty God has created human being, due to that he knows that this creature is going to have bloodshed or something like that. So what is the reason?
As I told you, just again reminding the words that if we have been interpreting with one another, having more understanding of it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the chapter 2, Surah Baqarah, verse number 30 said, وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً قَالُوا أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاءَ. So here from this verse, we will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's a discussion, of course, angels in this, discussion with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can say that they politely, raised the question that was in their mind, saying that, so if this is the situation with this creature, humankind, so why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let him be your successor? Why, for example, we cannot be? Whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in advance, before creation, knows the characteristic of such a creature or not. From the exact words that before mentioned, we can understand that that angels knows the characteristic, because they started to politely complain. Why, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you create a creature which has got this characteristic, shedding blood. So when the angels know the characteristic of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, let alone Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course He knows better. So it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows in advance that when He creates this creature, so this is the situation that will come after. So now we are coming to your question. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this situation, why He created human being?
Why?
Yes. We're going through a really important discussion, which is about free will and choice and option. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, in one side He knows the characteristic of human being, and of course in the other side He could forbid this situation to happen. He could easily, for example, stop the war to be happened. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He Himself in a verse that in the verse, yes, if I'm right, so in chapter 2, verse 253, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, تِلْكَ الرُّسُلُ فَضَّلْنَا بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. In the continuation of the verse, وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ مَا اقْتَتَلَ الَّذِينَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَتْهُمُ الْبَيِّنَاتِ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, He would not let this war between nations to be happened. So why He did not do, just forbidding these wars to happen? This is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants humankind and mankind, human being, to find the right path, to come to the peaceful world, to come together in a peaceful situation, to live along with one another out of His own choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have stopped that. But if He could have stopped that, so there would not be any value for out of this action. So the valuable action is the action that human being does out of his own free will. So we are, for example, let me tell you that, for example, if we are in a hardship or difficulty, and right after, so there are two different options, and although we are in difficulty and hardship, for example, we are choosing a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is satisfied. So this is valuable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let us have these characteristics, to shed blood, of course, fighting, killing, vices, desires, and whatever lust and whatever we have. And from the one side, and the other side, the good characteristic as well. And He just let human being, he himself, to decide which one he wants to go directly toward that way. And when he just decide to go toward that way, so this is important. If he chooses, human being, if he chooses, for example, to go toward right path and toward the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so because he does that out of his choice and out of his free will, that is valuable for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the difference between human being and angels.
So you mean angels that don't have free will?
Yes. That's why we will see that whatever angels they do, because they cannot even think about committing a sin, committing a crime, so this is not that much valuable. That's why we will see that even a human being can go higher and higher in the level. They can go to the higher level than the angels that they are.
So you mean the philosophy of happening this war and battles and homiciding or whatever like this is because of our free will?
Yes. That's why exactly, this is these characteristics, these vices, even the existence of vice, which is translated in Arabic also as shar, the existence of shar, the existence of vice is also the matter of question nowadays. That what we will see all these, for example, vices in the world, in these natural disasters, for example, volcano and earthquake and whatever that takes, the life of millions of people. So what is the, for example, philosophy behind it? So one of the answers,
is due to the human being? Is it related to human beings?
One of the answers, vices are completely different, of course. Yes, some of them are, for the test, for the examination. Sometimes the difficulties and hardship that happens to the human being is because of the test and examination that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see what is the result. Mm-hmm. And some others out of, our free will. For example, robbery. For example, killing. For example, these wars. These are not natural disasters. This is out of our choice. For example, we could not stop the wars to be happen. We could, but human beings, they themselves, they just decide these wars to happen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants human being to choose his own way out of his free will. That is the philosophy behind the, this event, war.
Sheikh, sorry, to go back to this topic of, Syrian war, you see we have, we can say, turmoil in Syria.
Yes.
So, is it according to their free will they came and they're just assassinating people? So, if we can name them Muslims, so are they following their free will or are they following their notion? What is it here now?
Mm-hmm. When you're just taking the example of Syria nowadays, which is a kind of a homicide, of course, happening there, and we are, of course, sorry for that situation there. When we go to different side of this battle, and just going to the side that they started battle there, we will see that yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have stopped that battle to be happen, and in a way, for example, like in other nations that bringing kind of azab, for example. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't do that because it was out of that group's choice. And this is the system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to be, as a kind of discipline and rule in this world. So this is a kind of material world, and this is the system here, that a human being should, maintain and continue his action out of his choice, whether it is good or bad. And of course, the philosophy behind punishment and reward, of course, also will be justified according to our free will. So if there is no any free will, so there cannot be any punishment and reward as well. So even this war that happened nowadays in Syria, it's out of the choice of that group or nation. And whether if, for example, the Syrian people, they are right and they will be martyred and killed in this way, so they will be rewarded because they are defending their own countries. And because they themselves chose that out of this free will, this is important for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will reward them for this.
So definitely in jihad,
yes,
if we take it in the right way, for example, because as I understood from your saying, it means that jihad means to defend yourself.
Yes.
But first of all, you said it's about to conquer your concupiscence, your desire and loss. So the second one, in a matter of war, when somebody attacked you, so you have to defend yourself.
Yes.
So in this case of Syria, because I brought this example to this to just know, is it a kind of defense, or is it kind of initiating war, or just using their free will to attack people, to kill people? Because this thing gives some misunderstanding in the whole world. And we have been disgraced, and we have been disrespected all around the world.
Yes.
So would you please elaborate a little bit?
As I told you about the meaning of jihad, which is making an effort and try to get your own goal and aim. I have to tell you that even when you go to the history of Islam, unfortunately, I don't know if we have time to continue to go to the history of Islam, to the
Some
lifetime
minutes
of the
left,
Prophet, but we will see that jihad doesn't mean that you can start the war against another person, because, for example, you want to make him as a Muslim believer. So why you are attacking such a person or such a group or such a nation because they are not believing in what you believe. So this is not a good justification for starting a war and naming it as a jihad. So jihad is a kind of, as you told, of course, us, is a kind of defense. Yes. When a person just attacking another person, a group, another group, or a nation, another nation. So jihad here means that just to defend your own faith, to defend your own country, to defend even your family and your people. So you cannot start a war against another person. Here, this is the example that we will see in Syria, that Syrian people, they didn't start the war. Nowadays, they are defending themselves, they are defending their own family, children, women, innocent ones. And that is why we call the action that Syrian people are doing as a kind of jihad, which is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which is...
But rebels, they have attacked them. You know, the Syrian government or Syrian people, they're defending themselves. But rebels from different countries, from Afghanistan, Libya, from Bangladesh, or different, regions, they came and attacked them. So, I mean, the people, they are, innocent people, they are, they have been, we can say, they have been, used, or they have been killed innocently.
Yes. I told you, so it doesn't make any difference from which nation we are. But if we are following the teaching of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Islam, and we accept that Islam as a kind of ultimate religion in this world, this is the teaching. That's saying that jihad is a kind of defense, and we cannot start the war to make other people as what we believe in, to believe in what we believe. Because there is no any value out of that.
That's right.
By force, just pushing other people to believe in what you believe, and maybe even after all, you cannot change what is in their heart. Maybe apparently, within their appearance, they will show that.
That's correct.
But within their heart, there is no any satisfaction with that.
Thanks.
So there is no any...
I'm sorry, we're running out of time, so I have to wrap up the show. Okay, dear audience, thanks for watching us today. I hope you watch us in next session of this program, because we have a lot to say and we have a lot to talk about. See you next time.